There's a moment that comes every single day, right when your alarm goes off, when you face a choice that will determine everything about your life. Most people don't realize it, but that choice, whether to get up or hit snooze, is the same choice that separates those who build empires from those who build excuses. It's not about being a morning person. It's about understanding something fundamental. What you feel like doing and what you need to do are rarely the same thing. I was 25 years old, broke, and working as a stock clerk when I met the man who would change my life. Earl Schoaf took me under his wing, but he didn't coddle me. He told me to meet him at his office at 6 in the morning. 6 in the morning. I didn't feel like getting up at 5:30. I felt like sleeping until 8. I felt like taking it easy. I felt like a lot of things, but none of those feelings were going to change my bank account. So I showed up, and the first thing Earl said to me was, "Jim, successful people do what unsuccessful people aren't willing to do, and they do it whether they feel like it or not." That sentence hit me like a thunderbolt. I'd been living my entire life at the mercy of my feelings. If I felt like making sales calls, I made them. If I didn't, I found something else to do. If I felt motivated, I worked hard. If I felt tired, I took it easy. And what did that get me? Exactly what I deserved, nothing. My feelings had been running the show, and my feelings were running my life straight into the ground. Here's what most people don't understand. Your feelings are designed to keep you comfortable, not to make you successful. They're primitive survival mechanisms left over from when we lived in caves. Back then, conserving energy made sense. If you didn't feel like hunting, you could wait until tomorrow. But we don't live in caves anymore. We live in a world where the person willing to do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not, gets to write their own ticket. Think about the salesman who doesn't feel like making cold calls. He sits at his desk, shuffles papers, checks email, maybe makes a call or two to people he already knows. At the end of the month, he wonders why his commission check is so small. His feelings told him to stay comfortable. His feelings told him rejection would hurt. His feelings told him tomorrow would be better. And his feelings lied to him, just like they lie to everyone who listens to them. Or consider the student who doesn't feel like studying. The material is boring, the weather's nice outside, friends are going to the movies. All those feelings are real, no question about it. But when exam day comes, the exam doesn't care about how the student felt 3 weeks ago. The exam only cares about what the student knows. And the student who followed their feelings is about to learn an expensive lesson about the price of comfort. I see this everywhere. The entrepreneur who doesn't feel like facing another rejection, so they make one more revision to their business plan instead of making that sales call. The person who doesn't feel like exercising, so they promise themselves they'll start on Monday. The parent who doesn't feel like having a difficult conversation with their child, so they let it slide one more time. Every single one of these decisions seems small in the moment. Every single one is based on a feeling. And every single one compounds over time into a life that's far less than what it could have been. The truth is this: feelings are not your friend when it comes to achievement. They're not the enemy either. They're just not qualified to make your decision. Feelings are wonderful servants, but terrible masters. When you put them in charge of your life, you end up living someone else's life, following someone else's path, ending up somewhere you never intended to go. I learned this the hard way. Before I met Earl, I was letting my feelings guide every decision. I felt like buying things I couldn't afford, so I did. I felt like taking it easy when I should have been working, so I did. I felt like blaming my circumstances instead of taking responsibility, so I did. And where did all that feeling get me? I was 25 years old with pennies in my pocket and nothing to show for a quarter century of life. But here's the thing about discipline, and this is crucial. Discipline is simply doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. It's not about being superhuman. It's not about never feeling tired or unmotivated or discouraged. It's about understanding that those feelings don't get a vote. The work still needs to be done. The calls still need to be made. The exercise still needs to happen. The difficult conversation still needs to take place. Most people wait to feel like it. They wait for motivation to strike like lightning from the sky. They wait for the perfect mood, the perfect moment, the perfect alignment of the stars. And while they're waiting, life is passing them by. The opportunity is going to someone else. The dream is fading. The years are accumulating. And all they have to show for it is a collection of good intentions and a long list of things they would have done if they had felt like it. Here's what I discovered. Feelings are followers, not leaders. When you start taking action despite your feelings, something remarkable happens. The feelings change. You don't feel like going to the gym, but you go anyway. And 10 minutes into your workout, you feel great. You don't feel like making that difficult phone call, but you make it anyway. And after it's done, you feel relieved and proud. You don't feel like getting up early, but you do it anyway. And by 7 in the morning, you've accomplished more than most people do all day. And you feel like you can conquer the world. The feelings follow the action. They don't lead it. You can't wait to feel like it because the feeling comes from doing it. If you wait to feel motivated before you act, you'll wait forever. But if you act despite not feeling motivated, the motivation shows up after you've already started moving. I spent 6 years building my fortune after Earl taught me this lesson. 6 years of doing what needed to be done, whether I felt like it or not. And I can tell you honestly, there were 1,000 mornings when I didn't feel like getting up. There were 1,000 phone calls I didn't feel like making. There were 1,000 meetings I didn't feel like attending. 1,000 books I didn't feel like reading. 1,000 disciplines I didn't feel like maintaining. But I did them anyway. Not because I was special. Not because I was more talented than anyone else. But because I understood that my feelings were irrelevant to my responsibilities. And that's the foundation everything else is built on. Once you grasp this principle that what you feel like doing has nothing to do with what you need to do, you've taken the first step toward creating the life you actually want instead of settling for the life your feelings have given you. Most people never take that step. They live and die at the mercy of their emotion, blown around by every passing mood like leaves in the wind. But not you, not anymore, because now you know the truth. Feelings don't matter when there's work to be done. The problem with following your feelings is that the bill doesn't come due immediately. It comes later with interest. And by the time you realize what you've lost, it's often too late to get it back. I've watched people throw away fortunes, health, relationships, and entire lifetimes because they made decisions based on how they felt in the moment rather than what needed to be done. I knew a man once, brilliant fellow, sharp as they come. He had a business that was doing well, customers lined up, good cash flow, but he didn't feel like prospecting anymore. He had enough business for now, and prospecting was uncomfortable. Making cold calls meant facing rejection. Following up with leads meant dealing with people who weren't interested. So he stopped. He told himself he'd earned a break. He told himself he could coast for a while on the momentum he'd built. And for a few months, everything seemed fine. Then the economy shifted. A competitor moved into town. A few of his biggest clients went with someone else. And suddenly, his pipeline was empty. No new prospects. No new leads. No one to call because he hadn't been building relationships when times were good. The business that had taken him 10 years to build crumbled in less than 2. And all because he didn't feel like doing the uncomfortable work of keeping the pipeline full. His feelings cost him everything. That's how it works. Feelings don't show you the consequences up front. They whisper sweet reassurances. Just this once. You deserve a break. Tomorrow will be fine. You've been working so hard. And all of those things might even be true. But they're irrelevant to the outcome. The farmer who doesn't feel like planting in the spring doesn't get to eat in the fall, no matter how tired he was or how much he deserved a rest. Think about the seasons of life. Nature doesn't care about your feelings. Planting season comes whether you're ready or not. If you don't plant when it's time to plant because you don't feel like working in the dirt, you don't get to complain when harvest season comes and there's nothing to harvest. The seasons don't negotiate. They don't make exception. They don't say, well, he was really tired that week, so we'll give him a bonus crop anyway. The law of sowing and reaping is absolute, and it applies to every area of life. I watched this play out with a woman I knew who didn't feel like exercising. She was busy. She was tired. She had kids, a demanding job, responsibilities piling up, and exercise felt like one more thing on an already overwhelming list. So she skipped it. Day after day, week after week, year after year. She felt justified because she was genuinely busy. But her feelings didn't protect her from the consequences. By the time she turned 50, her health was failing. Diabetes, high blood pressure, joint problems. The doctors told her she needed to exercise, to lose weight, to change her lifestyle. But now it was 10 times harder than it would have been at 30. Now every step hurt. Now her body fought against her instead of working with her. She sat in my seminar one day and told me through tears, "I wish I had just done it when I didn't feel like it. I wish I had known the price I would pay." That's the thing about the price of listening to your feelings. You always pay it. Always. The only question is when and how much interest has accumulated. The person who doesn't feel like saving money pays the price when the emergency comes and they have nothing set aside. The parent who doesn't feel like having hard conversations with their teenage child pays the price when that child makes destructive choices and won't listen to them because there's no foundation of real communication. I've seen businessmen lose everything because they didn't feel like facing financial problems when they were small. They avoided opening the envelopes. They put off the uncomfortable conversations with their accountant. They hoped things would somehow work themselves out. And by the time they finally faced reality, the problems had multiplied beyond their ability to solve them. Their feelings protected them from discomfort in the short term and delivered catastrophe in the long term. Here's what happens when you make feelings your guide. You create a comfortable prison. The walls are soft. The chains are invisible. Everything feels reasonable in the moment. Sleeping in feels good. Avoiding conflict feels peaceful. Taking it easy feels deserved. But while you're feeling comfortable, the prison walls are closing in. Your options are shrinking. Your potential is dying. Your future is being traded away for the comfort of right now. The worst part is that feelings are master rationalists. They don't just tell you to be lazy. They give you reasons that sound good. You need to take care of yourself. Balance is important. You shouldn't be so hard on yourself. All of these things can be true, but when they're used as excuses to avoid what needs to be done, they become lies wrapped in wisdom. Feelings will quote philosophy to justify weakness. They'll use the language of self-care to enable self-destruction. I learned this during my 6 years of struggle before I met Earl. I had every feeling-based excuse in the book. I didn't feel like working evenings because I'd already worked all day. I didn't feel like reading because I was tired. I didn't feel like learning new skills because what I was doing was comfortable. And every single one of those excuses sounded completely reasonable at the time. But reasonable excuses produce unreasonable consequences. The truth is that small indisciplines compound just like small disciplines. Miss one workout and nothing happens. Miss 100 workouts and you've lost your health. Skip one day of prospecting and your business survives. Skip 100 days of prospecting and your business dies. Avoid one difficult conversation with your spouse and the marriage continues. Avoid 100 difficult conversations and you wake up one day living with a stranger who resents you. Feelings convince you that the small choices don't matter. Just this once, just today, just this situation. But life is built on the accumulation of small choices. A life of achievement is nothing more than thousands of small disciplines stacked on top of each other. And a life of regret is nothing more than thousands of small indisciplines excused by feelings and rationalized away. I think about the people I've known who sacrificed their dreams on the altar of their feelings. The writer who never wrote the book because she didn't feel inspired. The musician who never practiced because it felt tedious. The entrepreneur who never started the business because fear felt overwhelming. 20 years later, they're still talking about what they're going to do someday, when they feel ready, when the time is right, when they feel more confident. But here's the reality. Feelings are a luxury we can't afford when there's work to be done. When you have bills to pay, feelings don't matter. When you have dreams to build, feelings don't matter. When you have people depending on you, feelings don't matter. The work still needs to get done. The discipline still needs to be maintained. The responsibility still needs to be met. And if you won't do it when you don't feel like it, then you're not serious about your goals. You're just entertaining yourself with pleasant fantasies. Because real achievement, lasting success, meaningful accomplishment, all of it requires doing what must be done regardless of how you feel about it. The people who succeed aren't the ones who always feel motivated. They're the ones who act regardless of motivation. They're the ones who understand that feelings are weather, sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy, always changing, and completely irrelevant to the work that needs to be done. The farmer doesn't wait to feel like planting. The professional doesn't wait to feel like performing. The parent doesn't wait to feel like parenting. They do what must be done because it must be done. This is the price that nobody talks about. Everyone wants to discuss the price of success, the hard work, the sacrifice, the dedication, but nobody wants to face the price of failure, the cost of listening to your feelings instead of following your commitments. That price is paid in broken dreams, wasted potential, and the quiet desperation of knowing you could have been so much more if only you had done what needed to be done when it needed to be done. And the cruelest part, the price keeps going up. Every day you don't do what needs to be done, the task gets harder and the cost gets higher. The debt you didn't face yesterday is bigger today. The skill you didn't develop last year is even more necessary this year. The relationship you didn't invest in last month needs even more repair work now. Feelings promise you comfort, but they deliver compounding consequences that eventually become unbearable. There's a fundamental difference between people who achieve extraordinary things and people who talk about achieving extraordinary things. It's not connections or advantages or any of the other excuses people use to explain why others succeed while they struggle. The difference is simple. Successful people operate from must, while unsuccessful people operate from want. When something is a want, your feelings get to participate in the decision. When something is a must, feelings become completely irrelevant. And understanding this distinction will change everything about how you approach your life. I saw this clearly one winter evening years ago. I was speaking at an event, and after I finished, two young men approached me. Both were in their early 30s. Both had young families. Both worked in sales. The first one told me, I want to be successful. I want to provide a better life for my family. I want to earn 6 figures. The second one said something different. He said, I have to make this work. I have no choice. My family is depending on me and failure is not an option. I gave them both the same advice, the same books to read, the same action steps to follow. A year later, I ran into both of them at another event. The first one was making excuses. The economy was tough. His territory wasn't as good as others. His manager wasn't supportive enough. He hadn't made much progress because, well, conditions weren't ideal. The second one had tripled his income. Same economy, same industry, different results. Why? Because for the second man, success was a must. For the first man, it was still just a want. When you want something, you'll do it when it's convenient. When it's a must, you'll do it no matter what. When you want to lose weight, you'll eat healthy when it's easy and the food tastes good. When you must lose weight because the doctor said your life depends on it, you'll eat what you need to eat regardless of how it tastes. When you want to be wealthy, you'll work hard when you feel motivated. When you must be wealthy because your children need to eat, you'll work hard whether you feel motivated or not. Think about the single mother working 3 jobs. She doesn't feel like getting up at 4 in the morning. She doesn't feel like working until midnight. She doesn't feel like sacrificing time with her kids. But she does it anyway because her children must eat. They must have a roof over their head. They must have what they need. Her feelings don't get a vote because the situation doesn't allow for feelings. It's a must. Or consider the immigrant who comes to a new country with nothing. No connections. No money. Sometimes barely speaking the language. Does he feel like working 16-hour days? Does he feel like taking jobs that others won't take? Does he feel like starting at the bottom and clawing his way up? Of course not. But he does it anyway because success is a must. There's no going back. There's no plan B. There's no safety net. It's succeed or fail, and failure's not an option, so feelings become irrelevant. The problem with most people is they operate in the gray zone of should and would like to. I should probably exercise more. I would like to start that business. I should spend more time with my family. I would like to read more books. When you live in the gray zone, your feelings maintain veto power over your actions. Should means maybe. Would like to means when it's convenient. And neither of those creates the kind of compelling force that overrides your resistance. But when something moves from should to must, everything changes. Your entire physiology shifts. Your brain starts solving problems instead of making excuses. Your creativity activates because it has to find a way. Your persistence increases because quitting is no longer on the table. The must creates a necessity that feelings can't argue with. So here's the question: how do you create a must when your circumstances don't force one on you? How do you manufacture necessity when you're comfortable? Because that's the real challenge for most people. The single mother doesn't have to create motivation. Her circumstances created it for her. The immigrant doesn't have to manufacture determination. His situation demands it. But what about the person who has enough to get by? What about the person who's comfortable but not fulfilled? What about the person whose dreams are dying quietly while their bills are being paid? The answer is this: you create must through clarity of purpose and strength of reason. Most people have weak reasons for their goals. I want to make more money because money is nice. I want to be healthier because being sick is bad. I want better relationships because lonely feels uncomfortable. These reasons are too weak to override your feelings when things get difficult. But when you get absolutely clear on your reasons, when you write them down and confront them daily, when you make them so real and so vivid that they demand action, then you create your own must. Why do you want financial success? Maybe because you watched your parents struggle and you decided your children will never know that fear. Maybe because you have a vision of the impact you could make if you had resources. Maybe because you refuse to waste the potential you know lives inside you. Those reasons, when they're real and personal and powerful, create necessity. I learned this after my daughter was born. Suddenly, success wasn't about me anymore. It was about her. It was about the life I wanted to give her, the opportunities I wanted to create, the example I wanted to set. That shifted everything from want to must. Did I feel like working late? No, but I did it anyway because providing for her was a must. Did I feel like studying when I was exhausted? No, but I did it anyway because building a better future for her was a must. The quality of your must determines the quality of your discipline. A weak must will crumble when feelings get strong. A powerful must will override any feeling, any excuse, any resistance. And the way you build a powerful must is through clarity and commitment. Write down exactly why your goal matters. Make it specific. Make it emotional. Make it about something bigger than your temporary comfort. Then read it every single day. Remind yourself constantly why this is non-negotiable. The other way to create must is through commitment that creates consequences. When you tell people what you're going to do, when you invest money you can't afford to lose, when you burn the boats so there's no retreat, you manufacture necessity. Most people keep escape routes open. They keep plan B ready. They don't fully commit because they want to protect their feelings from the pain of failure. But that safety net is exactly what allows feelings to talk them out of action. Successful people eliminate the option of retreat. They make commitments they can't back out of. They create situations where they must perform because the alternative is unacceptable. They understand that when you give yourself an out, you'll take it the moment things get uncomfortable. But when the only way forward is through, you find the strength to go through. Think about what happens when your must is bigger than your mood. You have a bad day, but you do the work anyway because it's a must. You feel tired, but you show up anyway because it's a must. You don't feel confident, but you take action anyway because it's a must. Your feelings become background noise instead of the deciding factor. And that's when your life transforms from ordinary to extraordinary. Now let's talk about how to actually build this into your life. Because understanding the principle is one thing, but living it day after day is something else entirely. The battlefield where this gets won or lost is the first hour of your day. Win that hour, and you'll likely win the day. Lose that hour, and you're already playing catch-up with your feelings for the next 16 hours. The moment that alarm goes off, you're in a war. Your feelings are telling you to stay in bed. Your body wants more sleep. Your mind is bargaining for just 5 more minutes. And right there, in that moment, you establish the pattern for everything that follows. If you let your feelings win that first battle, they'll expect to win every battle that day. But if you get up regardless of how you feel, you've set a precedent. You've proven to yourself that feelings don't run the show. The secret is to start small with commitments you absolutely will not break. Don't try to overhaul your entire life on Monday morning. That's a recipe for failure. Instead, pick one non-negotiable thing. Maybe it's getting up at a specific time. Maybe it's making your bed. Maybe it's spending 15 minutes reading something worthwhile. It doesn't matter what it is as long as it's specific and non-negotiable. Do that one thing every single day, regardless of how you feel, and you're building the muscle of discipline. Because that's what this is, a muscle. The first time you lift weights, it feels impossible. Your muscles shake. Everything hurts. But if you keep lifting, the weights that felt impossible last month feel easy today. Discipline works the same way. The first week of getting up early feels brutal. The first month of exercising regularly feels like torture. But if you keep doing it, something shifts. The action becomes easier. The resistance diminishes. Not because you feel different, but because you've built the capacity to act regardless of feelings. I know a writer who sits down at 5 o'clock every morning and writes for 2 hours. Every single morning. Weekends. Holidays. Doesn't matter. He doesn't wait for inspiration. He doesn't check if he feels creative. He sits down and writes because that's what he does. Some mornings the writing is brilliant. Some mornings it's garbage. But he writes anyway. And over the years, he's published 17 books. Not because he's more talented than other writers, because he's more disciplined. That's the pattern successful people follow. They establish routines that remove feelings from the equation. The routine becomes the decision. Once you've decided that you exercise at 6 in the morning, you don't have to decide again when 6 o'clock comes. The decision has already been made. Your only job is to follow through. And here's what happens. After you've followed through 100 times, your feelings start to change. Your body begins to expect the workout. Your mind starts to crave the productive morning. The feelings that used to fight you begin to support you. But here's what's crucial. You have to celebrate the discipline itself, not just the results. Most people only feel good when they see outcomes. They lose weight, make a sale, finish a project. But outcomes take time. If you're only celebrating outcomes, you'll quit before you get there. Instead, celebrate the fact that you showed up. Be proud that you did what you said you would do. Take satisfaction in keeping the commitment to yourself. That builds something more valuable than any external achievement. It builds self-trust. When you keep commitments to yourself, you start to believe yourself. When you say you're going to do something, you actually do it. That self-trust becomes the foundation for bigger achievements. But when you break commitments to yourself because you didn't feel like following through, you erode that trust. Eventually, when you set a big goal, there's a voice in your head that says, sure you will, just like all the other things you said you'd do and didn't. Here's the ultimate truth. Life doesn't respond to your feelings. It only responds to your actions. The market doesn't care if you felt scared to make the call. Your body doesn't care if you felt too tired to exercise. Your bank account doesn't care if you felt unmotivated to do the work. Only the action produces results. Only the discipline creates change. Only doing what must be done, when it must be done, whether you feel like it or not, moves your life forward. And here's the beautiful part. When you master this, when you become the person who does what needs to be done regardless of feelings, you unlock a level of freedom most people never experience. Because you're no longer a slave to your moods. You're no longer waiting for the right feeling to strike before you can act. You can create any results you want because you can take any action required, feeling or no feeling. So here's where we end up. The person who waits to feel ready will wait forever. The person who waits to feel motivated will accomplish nothing. The person who lets feelings make their decisions will live a life far smaller than what was possible. But the person who understands that feelings are irrelevant to responsibility, that discipline trumps desire, that action creates emotion rather than the other way around, that person can write their own ticket in life. This isn't complicated philosophy. It's simple, though simple doesn't mean easy. Every single day, you'll face choices between what you feel like doing and what needs to be done. Every single day, your feelings will whisper reasons to take it easy, to wait until tomorrow, to make exceptions just this once. And every single day, You get to decide who's in charge, your feelings or your commitments. The years are going to pass regardless. 5 years from now, you'll arrive. The only question is where. Will you arrive at the destination you chose, built one disciplined action at a time? Or will you arrive wherever your feelings took you, wondering what happened to all those dreams you used to have? I can't make that choice for you. Nobody can. But I can tell you this, the life you want is on the other side of doing what must be done. It's waiting for you to stop negotiating with your feelings and start executing on your commitments. It's waiting for you to understand that how you feel about doing something has absolutely nothing to do with whether it needs to be done. Do what must be done. Do it now. Do it whether you feel like it or not. Do it until the doing becomes who you are. That's the price of the life you say you want. And it's a price that feelings will never want to pay, but a price that champions pay gladly, knowing the alternative costs infinitely more.